And so let's, I guess, first of all, start by taking a look at what I'm planning to do in our time together. And so first of all, I just want to spend just a few minutes talking about intro to veneer, just to make sure that we kind of have a common vocabulary to use for the rest of the presentation. And then I want to talk kind of in general about the behavior of anchored veneers, and then kind of pivot to looking at, well, what does the code require of us when we're working with veneer systems. And then, as Maria said, we'll have a chance to take a little break and do some Q&A. And certainly, I think we do have, in the 2 hours allotted to us, we do have time to definitely do some questions. So don't be shy about having questions ready for us. And then after the break, we're kind of look at two kind of engineering methods, one which I'm calling the full engineered method, and then one kind of a quicker, more of a shortcut method, being the tributary air method. And at that point, we will close, and we should still have time for some further Q&A. So starting with intro to veneer, there's kind of three questions I want to answer in this section. First of all, I want to answer what is a veneer? And then I want to just review what types of veneers there are. And then, since we're going to really be talking about anchored brick veneer, since it's by far, I think, the most common veneer, especially veneers that engineers might find themselves involved with, is to really kind of look at the components of anchored brick veneer in some level of detail. So what is veneer? So first, I'd always start by looking to see, well, what does the IBC tell us? And so you can see that the IBC tells us it's a facing attached to a wall for the purpose of providing ornamentation, protection, or insulation. And then you see I've highlighted in red kind of the key kind of engineering idea, which is that we're not going to be counting this on this veneer as adding strength to the wall. And then the next one I have on here is from the TMS 402, and reads very similar to what we just looked at for the IBC. And I guess the only subtle difference here is we're told that the veneer is not considered to add either strength or stiffness to the wall system. So for the IBC, when it describes what is the veneer system, it describes as being it's something that's secured with approved mechanical fasteners to an approved backing. And in this particular illustration, and I think we've got an illustration to look at this in a little more detail, but just I want to hit this first term, backing. And so backing is just kind of what the wall behind the veneer is that we're attaching to. And so obviously this particular illustration is showing a concrete masonry backing. And and so then I guess this slide kind of blows it up a little bit more. And so you can see, obviously, let me get my little pointer out here. So you can see we've got, masonry here, what you see in the illustration here. And then kind of the next part of the system, and I'm really going to obviously be focusing kind of on the structural parts of the system. And so then connecting the masonry to the backing are anchors, which you see here or here in the illustration. And then lastly, as I mentioned, the backing, what the anchors are attaching to. And, I guess from a load path point of view, that what's getting the load kind of back to the structure. Okay, so take a look at our next slide here. And so another type of veneer, so this would be an adhered masonry veneer, is a veneer that's, obviously you don't see any anchors here. The way it works is it actually works just in adhesion. And so you can see that the masonry units in this case, they're much thinner units. And, basically it's a system where, these thin units get adhered, to the sheathing, which then is attached to the backing. And so like the IBC says here, you're working through the adhesion of an approved bonding material applied to an approved backing. We're not really going to talk about this today. I think it's very rare that engineers get into this. But I did want to just kind of address it if we're talking about kind of the world of veneers. This is something that falls kind of within the world of veneers. And then next, I guess looking at the components of the adhered veneer, you can see we've already kind of talked about the thin masonry units. We've got the adhesive in here. Obviously we also need to account for drainage. And so, there's drainage and insulation that happen kind of between the veneer and the backing. And in this case, kind of the backing consists of both the sheathing and the studs in this particular case. And when we talk about anchored veneers, typically we don't consider the sheath to be part of the backing. We only consider the studs to be part of the backing. And then now the third kind of veneer that I think is even less common would be a structural masonry veneer or an engineered brick veneer. And in this case, it's really kind of analogous to like a precast panel almost. So you can see that for this type of veneer, there's hollow units being used. This could be hollow clay units or hollow concrete units. And then, the veneer is actually reinforced, usually vertically and horizontally.